Welcome everyone to the final round of the Grenke Open 2025 Freestyle Chess. We have Jorden van Foreest taking on Arjun Erigaisi. This is going to be a super exciting clash. Jorden, known for his creative opening ideas in standard chess. How will he fare in freestyle chess is a good question. Both the players are on 6 points out of 8. A win here would help them finish in top 5 to top 10 in the tournament and would make it very successful for them. So you can see them totally focused, trying to understand where all the pieces belong, and a handshake and off we go. Let's have a look at the pieces that are there on the board. We have a knight, bishop, rook, queen, knight, king, bishop and rook, and Jorden opens the game with 1c4. Let's see what Arjun responds back with here. c4 does open up the bishop's path here, and Jorden played it after a couple of minutes of thought. c6 by Arjun, and he has opened up his bishop as well. A normal natural move now is d4, and I believe that's the most logical thing to do as you capture the center. Yes, and also it opens up the queen in some way, brings forth the knight on d3 if needed behind the pawn, and it makes a lot of sense. Pawn to d5 played here right into the center of the board. And now Jorden has a few ideas. He can go for c5, gaining space. He can also go for the exchange Slav like cd, and then playing that position. And you can see him there just toying with the idea of using his c-pawn. Will he exchange? Will he push forward? Is the big question. Well, he decides to push forward to c5, and that is a good move. Because in freestyle chess, one of the things is that gaining space is a very good idea. Now, black can push already forward with e5, but the problem with e5 is that after I take bishop e5, this position queen d2, knight d3 is very good for white. And that's the reason why Arjun plays f6. And you will see he's going for the e5 idea, but with due preparation with f6. Jorden now gains even more space with b4, but maybe that was not the need of the position. Much better would have been to just develop your knight to f3, but b4 played, and now Arjun can break in the center with e5. I believe he's going to do that in this position. Thinking a bit, and he plays it. Pawn to e5 played by Arjun Erigaisi, and now Jorden has some tough decisions to make. He can take here, but look at this center that black would have. It's huge. He plays pawn to f3 and opens up the bishop, which is a good idea because the bishop, if let's say I take bishop d4, I think white is very happy in this position. Arjun plays queen to e7 and just developing the queen, protecting the e5 pawn, getting ready. Maybe knight comes to c7, also preparing e4, by the way. That's a very important point, and Jorden must remain careful about this pawn push, but he doesn't seem to be very careful. He goes knight c2, clearly ignoring Arjun's idea of the pawn push, because when the pawn pushes forward, you are limiting this bishop, you are limiting the other bishop, and there is a lot of pressure that could follow. So Arjun here happily pushes forward, understanding that this is a very powerful move. Great move by Arjun. Opens up also the bishop's path to the h2 square. Jorden comes back to the board. He's thinking here, and he plays knight to e3. Well, Jordan's hope is that he can play takes, and then push the pawn forward on d5. Arjun goes g6, because Jorden had stopped his pawn from advancing to f5 with g6. He does want to play f5 on the next move. And Arjun gets up from the chair. Jorden now has to decide how to kind of navigate this position. He has to take his time. It's key moment here. Arjun has 1 hour 20 minutes on the clock. Jorden takes the pawn. He has 1 hour 1 minute. Pawn takes pawn. I believe Arjun will quickly take back the pawn. D takes e4. Seems like a worthy option here. Yes, he takes back. D takes e4. And now f5 coming in. Well, the problem with d5 here is that I can take, knight takes, and then just play queen e5, and black is doing quite well in this position. So Jorden decides to first get his knight into the game, but with this move maybe d5 becomes impossible now, because black can get the knight and plonk it on the central square. Yes, he does. Knight c7 on the board. A great move by Arjun Erigaisi here, bringing the knight into the center. And now he would like to push the knight to the d5 square. Black's plan is pretty simple here. Bishop f2 played. He's trying to castle. Black's plan is f5, knight f6, knight d5, bishop e6, short castle, and each and every piece is functioning. It's not easy to get such level of harmony in freestyle chess. And Arjun getting that right after 10 moves is just insane. And right now Jorden I don't think there's an easy way to break through this bind that Arjun has created. He goes queen d2. The best thing to do here as white is to keep making moves, hope that the opponent will make a mistake at some point, and then latch on to it. f5 very likely here. Yes, pushes forward with f5. It's a good move in the position. And now Jorden thinking about what next to do. He goes knight c4. And somewhere, you want to give up a pawn or something. Let's say knight e5 or knight d6. And just hope that it'll open up lines. Look at Arjun there, making another good move, bringing out the knight to f6. The plan continues. And one thing that white can now do is actually go for a check here. Queen h6 check. And Jorden does play it, queen h6 check. You can notice how Jorden actually makes his moves, sometimes with the left hand, sometimes with the right hand. A check on h6. And you can just block it with queen g7. He plays it. Oh, he doesn't play queen g7. He goes king f7. He keeps the queens on the board. Arjun is ambitious here, and such ambition that he's blocking his bishop and rook. But he has a threat. He has a threat of knight g4, kicking the queen out in this position. Knight to d6 check. Whew. Wow, Jorden, as we mentioned, wants to give up a pawn or two just so that he can activate his pieces. And here is one thing that he has done. Okay, bishop d6. Arjun's like, thank you so much, my friend, for giving me a pawn. Pawn takes. And now queen takes d6. See, makes a lot of sense. And so plays it. Queen takes d6. Yes, the position has opened up a bit. One more thing that has happened is now the dark squares have become quite weak. So let's say, for example, if I can get a successful bishop g3 to bishop e5, that would mean something. He goes h3, stopping knight g4 for the time being. Also, he could have played bishop g3, but f4 is a very strong move here. So that's why h3, first waiting for a bit. And now Jorden has some ideas. He wants to go knight c5. He wants to maybe later get bishop g3. By the way, the b4 pawn is hanging. Would that be another pawn that you want to capture? Arjun is a pawn grabber. He loves to grab pawns. He grabs another one. He's now 2 pawns up. And Jorden now must make use of this. I think a great idea now is bishop g3 to e5. That would give him some compensation. But he goes short castles. A short castling, it's not a bad idea. It's now all about whether Arjun can solidify his position with extra material, or will Jorden be able to create some counterplay? This is what the position is all about. Arjun plays pawn to b6. An interesting move whereby he takes away the c5 square from the knight. However, it does weaken the c6 square a little bit. And pawn comes up to g4. He pushes his pawn and Arjun very quickly brings back his queen. He's like, I am not having anything of your attack here, Jorden. But actually not trading the queens makes a lot of sense. If I go back queen d2, for example, queen d2, this makes a lot of sense here, keeping the queens on the board, because trading the queens may not really be a great idea here. I mean, you may also want to keep the queen. Oh, he takes. What? He takes it. Jorden makes this very, very weird decision here to take. King takes f8. And he's 2 pawns down here. But what maybe Jorden feels is that because his rook is already on f1 and is putting pressure here, he will get something, some counterplay flowing. Now first threat is to take and take on f5. So bishop e6 makes all the sense here in the world. And I believe that Jordan's next idea is bishop e5. No, he goes g5. An interesting move. And now Arjun has to decide where the knight goes. I think knight h5, eyeing the g3 and f4 square is a very good square. Although the knight is on the rim, it is not at all dim here. Thinking here, and he plays knight h5. He does play knight h5 on the board. And now bishop e5 makes a lot of sense to attack. Yes, he plays his bishop here. If you play rook g8, the problem now is bishop e4 and it's pinned. So you get back at least one of your pawns. King e7 by Arjun. Wow, he's giving up the rook in the side of the board. But what makes this move even more special, by the way, is the fact that after bishop h8, rook h8, there's also another pawn that you are giving up on c6. Isn't that true? Wow. So he's giving up 2 pawns here. I mean, first an exchange and a pawn, because he's 2 pawns up. So firstly, Jorden takes it. He's like, thank you, Arjun. Now the material has become even because roughly an exchange is worth 2 pawns and Arjun had 2 extra pawns. So rook takes h8. And now can we simply chop off this pawn on c6? Well, turns out that Arjun has calculated that with knight f4, he's getting the counterplay here. So that's the reason why first h4 is played here by Jorden. He doesn't wish to part with his pawns here on the king side and in the center. So h4 is on the board. And now Arjun plays h6, creating play on the king side. He doesn't care really about his pawn here on c6 because he realizes that after rook takes c6, there's no entry point there. So let's say rook takes c6, hg, it will only help black. King f2 played, trying to get the king into the center of the board. And he pushes his pawn to e3. Pawn e3 check. The king can come up to f3. So king f3 and now take, knight h f4. Seems like a plan here. So Arjun takes on g5 first. H takes g5 and h takes g5, likely by Jorden. And now this move knight hf4. Yes, he finds it, and a big threat now is just check, and it's actually game over there with the check. So you have to play now rook h1, trying to stop that rook h3. But look at this move, just knight h3 with the idea of f4, king d6. I mean, it's just completely crushing. Knight h3, imagine you make a waiting move, bishop d3. I have rook h4, my rook is coming in, g5 pawn is hanging. I mean, it's just over. Knight h3 played, and everything is hanging here for Jorden van Foreest. What is he going to come up with here? He's trying to focus on the position, but Arjun has played this game masterfully. He gets up from the board. He has 26 minutes on the clock. We are on move number 28. Jorden thinking hard there, and he's waiting for Arjun to come back. As he comes back, he resigns the game. What a game by Arjun, by the way. To beat a player of Jordan's caliber right out of the opening by this move, Queen e7 and e4, and then playing every single move almost precisely, grabbing pawns, giving up some material to understand that your kingside play is just too strong. Well, that just shows how good of a freestyle player Arjun is. And Jordan, of course, tried his best to stir up counterplay but wasn't able to. And as always, love the part where the players analyze the game when one side has won and the other side has lost. That just shows the sportsmanship. It's not something that has impacted the players in such a big way that they cannot really discuss with each other. There's a lot to learn by sharing thoughts. And you can see Arjun saying, instead of trading the queens, if you had gone back, instead of taking queen f8, if you had gone queen h4, and that would have been very, very helpful. And yeah, maybe practically keeping the queens on the board would have given Jordan better chances than what happened in the game. As things stand, Arjun finished the tournament with 7 out of 9, finishing joint second. Magnus Carlsen won the tournament with 9 out of 9, but then everyone tied on the second spot with 7 points, and Arjun went home back with roughly $14,500 euros, which is quite a decent sum of amount. But Arjun, I think freestyle chess is something that Arjun is really, really good at. He played well in Paris. He finished 5th, and now here also finishing joint second, having won a few freestyle Fridays. This is looking really good for Arjun Erigaisi. We hope that he keeps this going, and for now he's currently, I think, the best freestyle chess player in the country, as he signs the score sheet and the players take a leave. I hope you enjoyed this game and Arjun's play. This is Sagar Shah signing off. Bye bye.